I'm Chris, a Boulder-based strength coach and founder of Kinesis. In each episode of The Roadmap, I sit down with elite athletes and break down the training behind their elite performance. Just like you, each athlete has unique needs that require different strategies to address them. Join me as we show you the roadmap behind how these performances are manufactured. Welcome back to the roadmap. Welcome, Elise Cranny. Elise was just in the Olympics in Paris, and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, I'm from Boulder, Colorado. Grew up running. My parents grew up doing triathlon, so I feel like I've kind of been in the endurance sporting world for a long time. Went to college at Stanford and ran there, and then I'm now sponsored by Nike, and I've been running professionally for the last 5+ years.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and some things that some people might not know, we'll kind of start this off with a fun fact where, you've been to 2 Olympics now, you were just in Paris, and how long was the longest time or longest stretch that you've been uninjured for?
Just now we have it's been about over a year since probably high school or my freshman year of college. So in the last 10-ish years. So I would say that's something that I've really tried to focus on since Paris, but talked about it a couple months before, is just watching other people in the sport kind of make these big jumps and big breakthroughs and wondering how are they doing that? And then kind of going back to Elise at Niwot High School in her high school days, and it's how did you make those big jumps and breakthroughs? And it was really the consistency, not doing anything crazy, but just being uninjured and excited about the sport for months and years at a time.
Yeah, so currently, longest stretch of being uninjured.
Currently, longest
Sick.
stretch of being uninjured.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So that's something that's really common though, right, for a lot of people, where they see all these athletes, or maybe they see you and they see, wow, Elise has just been crushing it for years, but not realizing that probably many, especially women out there and younger high school girls, in and out of injury for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's something that's much more common than people realize. And yeah, I was injured a lot in college, and so luckily now what's caused me to miss some time is kind of more overtraining, so at least my body can handle the training a little bit more. And I think a big part of that has just been I learned a lot from my PT in college about the importance of strength in terms of injury prevention. And so I feel like my body, from a physical perspective, is much more resilient. So it's cool looking back in terms of I don't want to be kind of getting in this state of overtraining, but it's also cool to think, wow, junior, senior year of college, I would have never thought that I'd be able to train at the level that I've been able to now. And I just think my body is much more resilient due to the strength work and just really prioritizing recovery in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the whole goal of the roadmap, is talking about where someone is or where we want to go and how did we actually get there, right? And I think there's a lot of untold stories, right? And a lot of little steps that it seems like there was one massive leap to get somewhere, and then there's 1,000 steps in between that got you there.
Yeah, I think it is. It's so much about the small little things, or a lot of people have told me it's the 1%. And sometimes you feel like you're really, when you're talking about the roadmap, you feel really far away from where your destination or where you want to end up. But sometimes it's really just some small tweaks or some things, not even necessarily adding more, but maybe just tinkering or replacing a little bit. And I think that's what's really cool, when you can see that go a long way, but you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. For me, it was just find that consistency, just prioritize recovery a little bit more, scale back a little more here, and save it for the races. And I think that goes a really long way, but you don't have to do something entirely different.
Yeah, okay. What is the end of your, not end, but what is on the horizon for your current roadmap? Where are we focused on? Where are we headed?
Yeah, I think we kind of have two. I think we kind of have a shorter one in terms of this year would be U.S. champs. There's a world championships in Tokyo for track and field. So I would say that's kind of the shorter roadmap. And then, I remember when we first started working together is like kind of the ultimate roadmap, I would say, is the ultimate roadmap is like ending in the Olympics in 2028 in LA. I think, that was really helpful that you said it. I think as athletes and people in general, it's so important to have those like short but also those long-term goals. And I think you said it best, is like thinking about the next 4 years and thinking again about that consistency and what can you do over 4 years and what smart decisions can you make every day for Elise in 2027, 2028. And so I would say my big thing is wanting to make the Olympic team in 2028 and bring home a medal for Team USA. So that's the longer ultimate roadmap.
Yeah, I love it. And then, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, which brings us back, that was the future, brings us back to October when we started and we talked about what your ultimate super goal is, right? And that's, crushing it this year and building into the Olympics. And during that time, we were figuring out where your body was now, right? So during that time, we talked about a couple of things of, you have this really good feel for your body, and a lot of people probably feel this as well, where you're like, my left side maybe didn't feel as responsive as my right side. And a lot of people probably feel these things, but getting some objective data to be like, well, I'm not crazy, right? But then working on it, and how long was it? Was it like 2-3 months later when we retested on the force plates and we saw major improvement and you felt pretty symmetrical on the track too?
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool. I think especially with strength work, like as a runner, like especially if you've been running for a while, it's like it's harder to see little improvement in areas, but that's why I've always loved the strength in the gym work, because I think you can challenge yourself in different ways. But it's also been really cool to me to see it translate to the track. And it's like maybe you're not seeing it translate right away. We've talked about this, in like a race time or something, but it's in how you're responding to training or how you're recovering or just the power that you feel out there running, like feeling more symmetrical or feeling more powerful. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that anyone can harness, you know, is like whatever it is that you're, like we've talked about, whatever that little 1% is that you're adding, whether you're adding a couple strides or you're working on your form or you're adding a little bit of strength, is like you can really kind of start to see those changes in how your body's responding pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. And so you just described something that was great, a feeling. So I'm curious, what does strength mean to you? Because strength can mean something different to so many different people. It could mean emotional strength, mental strength, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think the two things that I think about when I think about strength is mental strength and physical strength. I think two different things. I think of strength as feeling like really empowered, confident, unstoppable, kind of, we talked about being like aware of your body and space and just feeling like athletic. And then I think the mental side of it, or strength in general, is just getting up when you've been knocked down, or just continuing to go on ahead with grit and resilience. I think that's what strength means to me too.
Yeah. And then having that confidence of like, oh, my body's good, I'm strong, I can do this. I'm not going to get injured.
Yeah.
In fact, I might train harder than I ever have, so I'm a little
I think strength,
overcooked.
That's a huge piece too. I think strength is really about trusting your body, and I think that's definitely something that I've seen from a lot of like younger girls that I've talked to, is just like when you've been injured, like trusting your body again. And I think we're talking about strength more generally, but I think strength work in particular, being in the gym and just like trusting your body and again getting a feel for your body in space, is something that can be really helpful, especially when you're coming back from injuries, because I think it can be scary to have to trust your body again when you feel like it's let you down.
Totally, super scary. Like that last 10%, you're like, oh, I don't want to push it, right?
Yeah.
But then having that confidence, oh, I can go 110% now.
Yeah.
Okay. Strength-wise, when it comes to traditional strength, give me your 3 favorite exercises that we've done, and what are your 3 least favorite that you come in, you're like, God damn it.
Man, I feel like, okay, favorite exercises. I love the K box. I love any sort of like squat, split squat, any sort of glute exercise. I really like working the adductors too, so like Copenhagen planks. Yeah, or anything. Like I said, anything new. I feel like anytime you give me a new exercise, it's like becomes my favorite just because, like I said, I love challenging myself in new ways. I think there's something that's really like powerful and exciting about that of trying to get a new movement pattern down or feel like you're doing something in a different way. Um, Least favorite? Man, I'm not going to give you three, but I guess in general, like the ones where you have me like slow down and breathe, which is really important, but it's really hard for me because I like the ones with like, I would say maybe ISOs, like exercises where you just hold because I like think I'm so tempted to just want to do the whole full exercise, the whole squat instead of just a hold. But yeah, I think you're teaching me like there's a purpose for every exercise and there's a place for it, not just as hard as you can go all the time. Because I think, I think that's something too that's really important about strength that I've learned is like it is a supplemental thing that can have a huge impact on, you know, your training, how you feel about yourself, all of that, but making sure it doesn't become like, unless that is your main thing, but like for me, the main thing. And so I think there have been times where my strength is actually taken away from my running. And so I think finding that balance is really hard of like, how can it be a supplement and how can it keep you healthy and uninjured and help you get those like extra few percentage points to be more powerful on the track, but not at the expense of, taking away recovery from workouts or going into a workout fatigued.
So you're telling me more is not more?
More is not more. More is not always
wow,
better.
Elise Cranny just said more is not more.
Learned that lesson the hard way, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it is. Like, I think not to sound like there's not any exercises that I don't like, but I think working with you, it's like I've realized there is just such a place and a time for certain exercises, and there's a place and a time to not tear the body down as much or to do lighter weight where you're still getting that maintenance and you're still going through those movement patterns, but you're not if you're tearing down on the tracker and your training and that intensity is going up, is like how do you balance that with the intensity in the gym?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, just like running, right? Like the training you're doing, smarter is better, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to go smash yourself every single day. No one does that, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's been times where we've all done that and then we realize, wow, I'm injured now. That was too much. And on that same note, right, for strength, like why isn't that perfectly integrated into that? And I think that's something that we've found. There are days where, listen, you're a beast, so you're going to want to go harder and do more. And we say, no, that was plenty, Elise. We don't need to do any more.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you've left most sessions feeling pretty fresh, right? Or like good.
Yeah. And I would say that's something that I'm learning in the weight room, but also on the track too, which I think is an important for anyone. Is like, don't leave your, like, I've done that too many times. I look back at a season and think, wow, some of my best performances were in a workout, but like, that doesn't matter. No one cares. Like, you could show them your training log, but, and so I think being like, can I leave the gym or the track feeling like I could do a couple more reps or could have done a little more weight? And I think that's where I'm realizing, trying to tell myself, like, that's where you're in the right working zone, where it's like you got good work in, but you leave feeling like, I could do a little more. And it's like, how can you kind of switch your perspective and the mindset to be like, okay, all these times that I feel that way are actually like I'm filling up my cup for when it's ready for a race or some goal that I'm trying to target.
Totally, yeah. And it's filling up your cup. Oh, I love that term, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's so important in all facets of life. And sometimes we forget it in sport. We think we're robots,
Yeah.
right? And we remember that if we go too hard and do it many times, you show up with an empty cup and don't feel so hot.
Yeah, there's not much you can do.
We have a specific term for that. We're not gonna say it, but I mean we'll say it. It's the shithole, right?
Yeah.
Like, you go too hard, your cup's empty. It takes a long time to refill, and then you feel shitty, and you're in a hole.
Yeah, and everything feels bad, and yeah. So I think making sure that you're always leaving what you're doing feeling like you could have done a little more, and I think that plays into the mental piece too. I think that leaves you like excited and feeling joy around like your sport or what you're trying to accomplish instead of crushing yourself all the time and like feeling horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So zooming back out, we have the whole roadmap. And real quick, I'm curious if you have any hot takes on the industry, the roadmap of the industry, right? We have running training, we have strength training, we have all of the human beings that are part of this industry that make it so amazing, right? That's why we love sport. That's why we love endurance sport. What is something that you wish we were all doing better?
I think I just wish that the sport of track and field was a little bit more professional. And I think like those pieces that you're talking about were more well integrated. Like I remember watching like, all these sports documentaries on Netflix that are really powerful, like Breakpoint with tennis. And I think just like seeing how other sports do things, how it's so just like the continuity of training and the communication between a coach and a sports psych and a strength coach and an agent or whoever is on your team. But I think that's something that the track and field world I think could do better overall, is just integrating all those pieces better, and so nothing gets lost through the cracks. And I think, we've talked about this too before, but I think, cycling or triathletes, they do a really good job of looking at data a lot more. And it's like, I know for some athletes, like that stresses them out, but it's like, can you have a team around you that's, looking at data to like help avoid injury or help avoid overtraining and, kind of match up with how you feel. I just think there's a lot of like little kind of nuanced things that like, especially in this day and age, we have so much technology, we have so much information. I think making it a little bit more individualized for each person from, a training perspective and a strength perspective, but also like what does that person need mentally, going back to the analogy, like what fills their cup in training, but also out of training. And it's like, how can everyone be creating a setup and a team for them where they feel like they're getting all the pieces that they need. Because sometimes I've talked to too many people and experienced myself of just things, that maybe aren't caught, or like, again, you get overtrained or you get injured and it's like, maybe that could have been prevented or caught earlier, but there's just like not kind of that coherent communication that I think you see in some other sports, at least from the outside.
Yeah, and it could be so simple, right? Where it doesn't have to be this incredible organization run like, Nike or Apple or something like that, but just finding the people that care about you as a person, and they would hypothetically want you to do well and support and communicate, right? And, having that infrastructure there, which goes all the way back down to, even high school level, right? So that infrastructure, as a whole of our industry, I'm curious if you have any, for our high school watchers and listeners out there, if you have any advice or insight for high school athletes on what they can do to make sure they have the right team for themselves.
Yeah, I would say a big thing is trying to get the strength piece in order. Like, I think that's something that so someone that you like trust or could go to, and again, it doesn't have to be crazy stuff in the weight room, but even if it's just some band stuff and some core stuff, like I know that would have gone a long way. And I got into that toward the end of high school and had some really good mentors who helped me with that, and I think that has helped me like have a longer career and a more resilient body. And I think especially just when you're going through so many changes in high school with puberty and everything like that, I think the strength piece is so important. And like we've talked about, it doesn't mean you have to be going to the gym for hours. It's like it could be 10 to 15 minutes before or after practice of just doing some band stuff and just getting things firing. And then I would say the biggest thing is starting to learn like what works for you, like what workouts make you feel good, what makes you excited about the sport. I think that's the most important thing. I think there's so much social media can be so good, but I think there's also so much information out there for high schoolers. Like, I can't imagine looking back. I'm like, man, if I had all like access to so much information, I think it can be really overwhelming. So I think a big part of that too is just like figuring out what works for you and then trusting in what you're doing and kind of having that, like, a little bit of that tunnel vision of like, okay, I feel best when I do my easy runs easy. I don't care if this person 5 states over is running their easy runs a minute faster than me. Like, I think that's what I really wish for high schoolers is just to like have fun with it too. Just like build a strong foundation and a base so that you can stay healthy, but like also keep it light and fun.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it light and fun. That's something I'm super passionate about as well, where you mentioned there's so much information on social media and just in general out there now. Magazine articles, blah, 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 whatever. And I do think personally that, my little niche in this industry is the strength and movement side of things, where there's so many exercises out there. Every day someone's posting the new coolest exercise. And for the most part, a lot of what we do is really basic fundamental stuff. Yes, every now and then you guys will see some videos of cool exercises, but for the most part, we do really fundamentally based stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, I'm trying to think of the quote that I like is like, this sport isn't easy, but it's simple. And I think that's, what you're saying is like, don't overcomplicate it. And I think I've totally done that before of like, you have to do this crazy exercise or you have to do this one crazy workout. But that goes back to what we're talking about. It's like the consistency piece. And I think, when I think of high schoolers too, it's like, how can you create, a routine and a training structure that's also sustainable, like that makes you want to keep coming back. So again, it's like that doesn't mean spending hours in the gym and doing crazy exercises. It's like, how can you focus on staying healthy and consistent, and it's fun to do a couple strength exercises and challenge yourself, but not like you're getting caught up in the 50 million exercises that are out there trying to figure out, what the next big thing is. And I think that's important to learn from, high school age, and something that I'm still working on too is, we've talked about this, but there's not one like magic secret formula or one magic exercise or workout that you can do. And I think it goes back to, the consistency piece. Like the people that you see that are most successful are people that have like put in work. They've like been patient through the ups and downs. They've continued to have confidence in themselves. They've built that foundation and strong base. They've enjoyed it. And you see that it's like those people have a really long career, and it's like the longer career that you can have, the more chances you have for that, that breakthrough or something really cool for your own moment to happen. And so I think that's the thing too, is I think especially in the world of social media, it's always like, are you looking for that thing that like you should eat, or you should, that exercise you should do, or that one workout? And I think it's really, again, like we've talked about, but like tailoring it to you and trusting in yourself and what makes you feel good, what helps you stay healthy and excited about the sport. And I think that's just like really important. Don't be like searching, just such a waste of energy. Spend that energy figuring out what works for you and what keeps you excited about the sport.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, two of the most important things are balance and consistency over time, relevant just to you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's when you start to see like you're stacking those weeks and months and years together. And I think this is with this sport, but also life, is you don't always see that payoff right away. And I think that's where you kind of have to have that blind trust that you're doing what works best for you, and you've, you're figuring it out. And, there's an experimental process to that too. It's like, you don't find that out overnight. It's like, it's taken me years. I'm still figuring out like, okay, this like gets me to where I'm a little bit overcooked, this stuff, and so it's looking at it like that too, of, okay, I don't have to have it all figured out. It's an experimental process, but also like, like not getting caught up in what everyone else is doing too. Like be willing to have an open mind and learn from other people. But I think there's that, finding that balance.
Yeah. My hot take on that is where there's so many of these pieces everyone is telling you you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. There's some things that are really simple, where sleep well, drink some water, eat well, train consistently, then we can talk about layering in strength, and getting fancy. And we talking about balance and data, which you brought up earlier. Yes, I can totally nerd out on all these little data points, but we'll keep it simple, right? Just in the weight room at least, right? Are you doing mobility? Are you doing some plyos? Are you doing some load? And are you going through some ranges of motion? Probably pretty good, right? Are you tracking how long you ran, how far you ran, how often you do that, and then are you deloading? Great. There's so many devices and companies that are saying you need to be, a data point I'm obsessed with is ground contact time vertical oscillation right now, which we don't need to dive into that. But that's a great example of what the hell does that mean? How does it pertain to me? And to your point, the basics and finding balance there is so much more powerful. And then eventually, I wouldn't say it's up to you, Elise, for example, to figure out, how does my ground contact time and vertical oscillation with my pace over time and different gradients, how does that affect my training, my running, my body? I would say that's a coach's job, right? So it's not up to you to figure that out, right? Find someone that can help you with that, and then just focus on you, right? Find balance and find consistency.
Yeah, I think that point that you said, I remember someone told me that a while ago. It's like focusing on doing like the 99% right first before you're looking at the 1%. And I feel like I've seen that a lot, and myself included, is like focusing so much on the 1% before you figure the 99% out. And again, like you said, that's just like consistent training, sleep, recovery, fueling right. And so I've definitely experienced that in my career. Like we were just talking about at the beginning, like I haven't found true consistency in a lot of years. So sometimes it's like I found myself trying to find that 1% or what exercises to do when it's like, let's just try to be healthy and consistent first. Like that is going to give you the most bang for your buck, so to speak, before, and then it's like once you've found consistency and you feel like you figured out the fueling right and the recovery and, getting, 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But like if you're trying to find that 1%, but you're getting 6 hours of sleep, is like the lowest hanging fruit is to maximize your sleep first. That's what you should be spending your time and energy on. And I think that's been like really helpful in my career, is like, don't get so caught in the weeds of focusing on the nitty gritty if you like when there's so much low hanging fruit of that like 99% first.
Yeah, no, I love that. And to that point, you're someone who has had an extensive career. You know the sport inside and out. And so I am curious, but this next segment we always go into, we call it Flip the Script. And on most of these podcasts and whatnot, you get grilled with questions. And so now you get to grill me with any questions. I'm a little bit nervous because I feel like Elise has been banking questions in her head. But yeah, this is your chance. Just ask me any questions about things that you're curious about maybe, or conversations and topics that might be really, really relevant for, especially I know you're passionate about younger athletes, the future of our sport.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with, we've talked about this of if you're, what I would say to younger athletes, like building a team around them. So if they don't have, a strength coach at their school, or they don't really know where to go for, information that's like reliable and trustworthy and helpful, what would you say to them? Like, what if they're like, I have no idea where to start with strength, and they're watching this, what would you recommend to a high school athlete that just wants to get into it, but maybe they just don't have a lot of guidance? Maybe they don't even have, access to a gym. What are some low hanging exercises or things that you feel like could make a big difference that are like simple and easy to incorporate?
That's a great question. And some of the most basic things, and something we see a lot of, is poor hip and core control. So if you work on some things that are pretty basic, we have an assessment that you can take online and just to see where you are. And, Copenhagen planks, star side planks, general core strength, that is such a low-hanging fruit. You don't need a gym. You don't need any equipment. The most important thing is to make sure you're doing the exercise really well. And that's where I encourage you to find someone who can work with you in person, there are plenty of people that are really smart and really experienced out there, no matter where you are. And you might even be able to find them virtually. And I encourage that the eyes on, because I feel like there's no replacement for me being like, for example, oh, Elise, just let's make the hips like this, a little bit facing more this way, to the front or to the back, right? Just make sure you're doing it right. And I think the key to finding the right people for it, it could even be someone, who's not officially working in it, but can give you some guidance that has experience. As long as those people care about you and it's not about them, right? They're removing their ego from it and are willing to learn. For example, if you tell me that something feels a certain way and you don't like this exercise, I'm open to that. We can have that conversation. I might say, you need to learn this. It's really important. But as long as you are able to ask them questions and they're able to answer them, and that answer isn't a because I said so, or because I did this, or because this person did this, right? There should be an explanation behind why. So there's plenty of things on YouTube that you can find, you can do yourself. Again, we have an assessment that you can take online as well. Really low-hanging fruits. You don't need a gym, but I do encourage you to find someone in person that can work with you and hone in how you're moving. And then don't be afraid to ask questions. Right? If they can't answer your questions, find someone else.
Perfect. Okay, so along those lines, I guess kind of zooming out a little bit from like the focus on strength, but you've worked with athletes, you were an athlete yourself. What do you feel like are things, kind of two sides of the coin? What are things that you've seen kind of that hinder or hold people back, like common things, and what are common things that you feel like characteristics or how they do things or mindset or whatever it is that you feel like, okay, I feel like this is a common theme that makes people successful that you've worked with?
Oh man, okay. This is a hard question, but a great question. There are people like you that are always automatically looking to get to what is 100%. And I call this, in the strength, movement, or injury prevention world, the 80% is the danger zone. And I don't want to be dramatic, but this is one of the biggest hindrances I see in people. Again, for those of you that are maybe first-time runners, triathletes, cyclists, endurance athletes, in the first year of their experience, 90% get injured that year. 50% of those stay injured statistically. There's some studies out there. It's not a perfect number. And for active runners and athletes, 50% approximately. It's 47%, but higher in women. And there haven't been that many women studied, so it's probably even higher, get injured every year. And of those, approximately 50% also get re-injured. So we're talking about the injury cycle. That is the number one hindrance I see. You're injured, you can't run, so you're not happy. Now your cup's empty, you can't train, you're injured, everything sucks. And that's gonna hinder you emotionally, physically, and mentally, right? And so what I see too often is people go to PT, they do some strength, and they stop, or they stay doing the same things they've done, which makes no sense. Why would you, if you're a runner, why would you do the same run workout over and over and over again without changing anything? Like, well, I'm just gonna stay here now. Well, you're probably not gonna get that much better.
Right.
Same idea with some of the movement stuff. And this pertains to a lot of things, right? It could be mental health. If you're 80% there, you are really susceptible to getting re-injured or falling back into a hole. You're not out the other side. And what I mean by that is, say you've had an Achilles tendon injury and you're functional, you're out of pain. Can you do some eccentric overload calf raises? Can you do intense plyometrics on one leg? Can you load up the calf to a good amount, right? I don't want to give you any specifics. Everyone has a different starting place. There are progressions built in. Most people stop way too early, and then they go back and they run 100 miles. Maybe they've run only 80 in the past, now they ran 100. So you just went over in your running, but you didn't overcompensate with your body capacity, human movement capacity. So I would urge you to figure out the roadmap of what does 110% look like. In 2028, we want to be better than when we were here today. But how do we continue getting there? We got to continue improving certain things, not just stopping at one place. So I urge you to work with someone or find someone that's going to find out the right place for you to start and plan out progressively and methodically where you want to be eventually, right? And continue working towards that so you're not injured. I consider a successful job on my end when you, for example, have been uninjured for 4 years, right? Granted, there are caveats, blah, 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 right? We can't guarantee that, but that's the goal. So long-winded answer, but I do think physical injury is one of the number one hindrances I see. And if you are not 110%, I urge you to find a little bit more, figure out what else you can do. And find, again, back to our previous question, find someone who can help you with that.
Yeah. That's great. What's your why? Why are you in this industry? Why are you so passionate about strength? What do you hope to see as your own career progresses? Like, what do you hope to see in terms of the strength world or high school athletes or up-and-coming athletes? Yeah, what's your why and what do you hope to see?
Man, okay. If a guy can dream, I would love to see that strength isn't thought of as strength training anymore, where we think of all training as training, right? Your body actually doesn't know you strength trained. Your watch might say it. It doesn't know if you ran, right? It just exercised, you moved, right? So there's strain on the body. I would love to see all training seamlessly integrated. And my nerd side it's something that we're actually working on, is integrating the data sets and the languages between running strain, strength strain, musculoskeletal strain, and how that impacts an athlete as a whole, not picking one piece apart. So that's where I'd like to see things go. And the why, it comes back to actually something I actually don't love talking about, but I identify with athletics and being an athlete, but my own road to that was really interesting. I was born 2 months premature, so my lungs hadn't developed yet, so I was basically underwater, and I was on a lung machine for I think 2 weeks. I'll have to ask my mom. 2 weeks, and until the age of 11, I couldn't run across a room without having an asthma attack. So I was constantly in and out of the hospital, and I could finally start moving and using my body. So one, human movement saved my life, and it's been something I've been obsessed with for forever. And working in the field, becoming an athlete, swam in college and became a triathlete, and found, wow, there's so many athletes here that are super talented, but maybe haven't learned how to use their body. That's something I became obsessed with, was using strength as a way to bridge the gap, as from somewhere that I didn't have, right? I didn't have that natural innate strength. And I just found so much success with athletes doing that. And that's really led me to question how else can we do this better? So my hope is that us as an industry always ask, how can we do this better? We don't need to reinvent the wheel, but how can we make that wheel really efficient? For you cyclists out there, how can we get some ceramic bearings in here? For you runners out there, how can we put a carbon fiber plate in this and make it really efficient and effective? What else can we do better? And that's my only hope. I could die happy knowing that we move the needle forward a little bit.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for you
Okay.
is, So as a professional athlete, I feel like I really admire people that, are training for a triathlon or a marathon or any sort of race while also working full time, raising a family, like really busy, a lot going on. What would you recommend to those people in terms of what if they say, Chris, I don't have time. I don't have time to incorporate strength. Do you have any tips on, again, like we've used this word a lot, but low hanging fruit or things that they can do to stay healthy and prevent injuries that don't require them to, be in the gym for an hour and drive to the gym and drive back and do something that just is not conducive to their lifestyle?
Totally. Easy, low-hanging fruit. Just do some mobility first. Running is so repetitive in small ranges of motion. You need to move fully. I think that's a huge low-hanging fruit. And two is, 30 minutes twice a week is plenty. That moves the needle a lot. If you can do that, that's fantastic. Get a set of 20-pound, to start, dumbbells or kettlebells at home, and there's plenty you can do with that. I do challenge you to think a little bit more about low-hanging fruits, and I'm curious to flip this back to you and hear your opinion as well, Elise, but what things can you substitute? Is that second double run going to make you any better? I don't know, maybe, right? But if you have a major strength deficit, if you're constantly injured, where are you? What is the most important piece? Your A race might be not the marathon, it might be getting healthy, which means maybe strength is your main workout of the week. So it just depends on where you're at, and I would challenge you to change the perspective on where you're at. We talked about consistency and balance and how it pertains to you. What is most relevant to you right now? Is it running more miles? Great, then do some mobility. Is it getting out of injury? Consider making strength your most important session of the week until it doesn't need to be anymore. So that's my hot take on it. It's not the answer. It's definitely my opinion, but it's something I have seen be very effective over time. And I'll flip it back to you, Elise. I'm curious to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking about, you're using the whole roadmap analogy, and I think a big part of that we haven't talked about is really being honest with yourself. And I think that's something that I've struggled with too. But how can you look at everything that you're doing? Especially for me, even as a professional athlete, it's like sometimes you can expand what you're doing. It's like I do have time and you're trying to get, to that 110%, that next percent. And so it's like you can add more here. But it's like when I've stepped back and really been honest with myself of like, what is working and what am I doing that just because I feel, like you've said, like how many times have I been like, I'm doing this extra 1 or 2 doubles because I am getting way too caught up in comparing to other people, and I feel like I'm focused on the mileage that I see at the end of the week. And it's like, I'm really learning of like, okay, that's actually not making me feel better. That's just tearing down my legs. What can I do instead? Can I do a mobility session? Can I do can I go get some soft tissue or massage work? Can I, maybe I just need to like relax and allow my, workout to set in and to absorb it. And I think that's something that's, really important too, is on your hardest workouts, whether it be in the gym or running, it's like on your really hard days, you're actually, making yourself worse. It's like you have to adapt to that. And so, that's something that's really important is, are you allowing yourself to adapt to the stress that you're putting on your body? But also, you were saying this, like the efficiency piece. Are you doing what's most efficient and effective for you? And, yeah, like you said, is like, can you, I think it's sometimes I've done this too. I'm like, well, I don't have time to add any more, things in. And it's like, well, maybe doing my 15 minutes of mobility is better than going on that double. And I think, along with that too, as like a very type A perfectionist myself, I think sometimes it's easy to be like, if I can't get in a full session or something, like it's not worth doing at all. And, to your point is like, maybe you don't have 30 minutes to do mobility, but let's say you have 10 minutes, like just do a couple exercises. And I think, in certain contexts, when it comes to strength or mobility, a little bit is better than nothing at all. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be able to go through your entire routine that you have every single week or a couple days a week or whatever it may be. But I think sometimes it's better just, do you have 5 minutes after a run? Can you do a couple walking drills before you like go and sit in the car? And it's like some really small things like that don't, again, take an hour or 2 hours or totally like derail your schedule. But we've talked about core control and hip and glute strength. It's like, okay, can you, if maybe you don't have time to add strength, but can you add 5 to 10 minutes of activation exercises before you do your run, just in the parking lot, a couple band exercises. And so I think that's a trap that I've seen and I've experienced too, is just like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but like, even if you just have a couple minutes here or there, like, I don't know, throw on your favorite TV show at night and just start the first 10 minutes by doing some mobility, like make it conducive to you. And it's like, if you already have a routine, how can you just add a couple of these pieces in the structure that you already have?
Yeah, and to that point, a big theme that you just brought up a lot there was giving yourself some grace. Of, again, I'll steal this quote from Brene Brown, but just do the best you can today with the tools that you've been given today. So I might wake up some days, we have a 3.5-month-old. I might wake up some days, not a lot of sleep. So not feeling great. I probably am not going to lift as hard. I might do some mobility and some light activation, and that's great. I moved today. Yay! Yeah. Right? Move the needle. Right? Can you move the needle a little bit every day? So we kind of just talked about like, what can we do? What's a great starting point for people that, don't have a contract and aren't training full time, for those aspiring high school athletes that want to be great, want to run in college and maybe beyond. What do you think is a great starting point in finding balance from all these things we just talked about? Like, I have to run, I have school, I have strength, I got to fit all of these things in. What would your advice to them be?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were saying, like that 99%. And I think it starts by picking one thing. Like, I know I've been overwhelmed with this before, is like, it's not going to work or be sustainable or become a habit if you're trying to implement 10 new things. Like, if you don't do any mobility and you don't do any strength and you're trying to say, I'm going to now start go from sleeping 7 hours to 8 hours, and I'm going to add strength and mobility. It's just too overwhelming. And so I think that's where like the roadmap is really cool. And I guess I would challenge people to sit down and kind of look at like, what are your goals? What do you want? What's a priority to you? Because I'm probably going to mess up the quote, but like, when something's a priority, like you're going, you do whatever it takes. So like, you're saying with your 3.5-month-old, it's like, even if you're tired, but something is a priority, it's like, you're still gonna get it done. And so I would say, like, really think about your priorities, think about your goals, write those down, make a roadmap of your own, write down the short and long-term goals. Where do you want to go? But what are the steps that are going to get you there? And, I learned this from my college coach too, but like, write down those process goals. Like, yes, have those short and long-term outcome goals, but like, what are some process goals, and can you go through them and start to check them off? And like, that gives you a lot of confidence and momentum too. So it's, maybe for a high school student, if you're sleeping 7 hours, maybe the first process goal is like, I'm going to try to sleep 8 hours, 5 nights a week for a month in a row. I'm going to add, 2 10-minute mobility sessions. So I would say, like, really start small, because I think when it becomes so overwhelming, then I think it's harder to give yourself grace, and you feel like, man, I failed at these goals that I set. But I would say, like, really write down some process goals, again, that are also short and long-term oriented. And it's like, where do you want to be a couple months from now? Especially, like, I think of that with high schoolers specifically. It's like, the summer is such a good time for that. Like, you're out of school. How can you lay some really good foundation? And especially in the strength and mobility side of things. Like, maybe you don't have time to do that during the school year, but the foundation that you set, sets you up for the rest of the year or for the years to come. And so, I would just say really like identify what your goals and priorities are, and really kind of get small and thinking about your process goals are what are like little things you can do. Sometimes it's even just mindset. What's a little bit of like self-talk that you can change? What's, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. Those little process goals. I think this applies both to people that are busy, have jobs and families, and also, if you're an aspiring high school athlete, figuring out to that roadmap, but then that process-driven part of, I'll use my expertise, for example, when it comes to strength. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You should do it all year round, but finding the right time where you can lay that foundation, and then you maintain and you modify as you go throughout the rest of the season. You have races, you have school, You are always balancing that scale. But when you can offset that, right? Say it's a less busy time at work, you might have more time for that. Do most of it then, right? And then when things get busy, just maintain, knowing that you're still moving the needle. So again, it's also about looking at your own life. I call it taking inventory of what does my life look like right now? What do I need to do? When am I going to have a little bit more of a downtime? I'm not going to stress myself out too much right now about getting perfect sleep because, for me, that's not going to happen. Finals are coming up for school. It's going to be busy. There's a lot going on. That might not be the best time to tack on more, right? We're constantly balancing that scale, and that's a big part of the roadmap. The roadmap is just there as a plan, as a guide. Feel free to change it whenever you need to. I think that's where we get stuck in the weeds sometimes. Like, but it says we have to do this on paper, right? You have final say in your life to make the changes that you feel are important.
I think along with that too, with the roadmap is something that I would say is, like you're saying, you don't have to stick to the plan perfectly, but also trusting that there's going to be ups and downs on the roadmap.
Yes.
And like being prepared for that, just being like, it's not going to be perfect. Like I'm going to run into things, an injury might pop up, I might get sick, and trusting that like that doesn't mean you can't get to your destination or your goal of where you want to go. And I think that's something, I guess, especially to high school athletes is, or if you don't reach your goal, it's like you can always like reset and find a new one to be excited about. And I think that's really, really important. It's just like you also can still reach your goal even if your build up to that goal race isn't perfect. And it's like you could ask anyone, even on an Olympic starting line, like, did you have the perfect build up? Were you healthy the whole entire year? Was every race that you ran just like amazing? You blew it out of the water? And like the answer for every single person, more likely than not, at least 99% of the people is going to be like, no, it wasn't. And so trusting in that too is like the build up and the roadmap doesn't have to be perfect, and there are going to be ups and downs in it, but like that doesn't mean you can't get to where you want to go.
Potholes and flat tires are normal.
Exactly.
Yeah. For everyone, even for you.
Yes, exactly.
I think the big picture for today really was balance and consistency and finding out what works for you. And also it sounds like finding people that you can trust sounds like a big piece of this. Removing anything, strength or whatever, the base of the roadmap is knowing yourself and knowing who to trust, and that can help get you there.
Yeah, for sure. I think other people can help you learn more about yourself and help you see any blind spots or areas to work on, and also having people in your corner that are there and want the best for you, and you know that their advice is coming from a good place. I think that's important.
Yeah, sweet. Well, thanks for that. We'll conclude this, and I'll leave you with 2 tips. I'm not a huge 2 tips person, but there are some things that I want to myth bust a little bit on. And strength can really be a powerful tool. We talked a lot about balance today, but it's really easy to overdo it and unbalance everything in the weight room. The weight room is a really potent addition into your training, but it could be way too much. There's a really popularized 5x5. 5 reps, 5 sets of heavy load. Yes, can be very, very effective. right? However, the demand on your central nervous system is really high. So we talk about adrenaline. If you do this rep scheme too often, you could put yourself in the hole without knowing it. You might not be that sore, but the demand is so high. And that's something we talked about earlier, is your session should almost offset what you've done. You should feel good after you left. You shouldn't feel smoked. That's not the point of effective strength training for endurance sport, right? It's not football. It's not our main workout of the day. And to add on to that, when you're starting out, 10 reps of something is a really popular place to start. 3 sets of 10, hypertrophy. Soreness is pretty high there. There's starting to be better research now about starting with a 7 rep range. That should keep you, we do this pretty often. And around 7 reps, you don't get too sore, you feel like you did something, right? So those are 2 tips that I wanted to kind of drop into that roadmap for you. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think build a strong foundation, prioritize consistency, get that 99%, and enjoy what you're doing. I think even with the strength piece is like, if you're intimidated by it, I think be excited to learn a new skill. Like whether you're a high school athlete, think about it as, it builds such a great foundation for you moving forward. But also if you're, running and training for your next race and you're older and you haven't done strength training before, is like, don't be intimidated by it. Be excited about it and be like, wow, how cool. It's really, rare, especially like, I feel like once you graduate high school or college, to be like learning a completely new hobby or new skill. And so I think I would say, like, if you're not into strength, flip your perspective on that and say, wow, this is like a really cool opportunity to challenge and push myself in a new way and learn something new.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you are interested in taking that assessment, some low-hanging fruits, you can click on the link below. It's super simple. There's, you don't need to read into it too much. And stay tuned for our next episode. We have a legend with this today, but we'll have another legend where we just talked about, what we can do to influence the industry in the future. This person's already influenced the industry in a way that you are experiencing, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sweet.
You rock. Right on time.
Wow, right
Shoot.
on time. Perfect.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roadmap. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss the next deep dive into the strength behind endurance performance. Stay strong, stay focused, and keep pushing your limits, and I'll see you next month.